Welcome to Living a Triggered Life podcast with Keith
and Roxann, presented by The Triggered Project.
Find out more information about The Triggered Project, go to www.triggered1.com. All right, how you guys doing? This is Living a Triggered Life podcast. My name is Keith Maskell.
And Roxann Maskell.
And we have been talking about the foundation of our relationship and how we met and where we were as people before, and we've just been sorting through all of it. We left off last time talking about how I went back and had a conversation with someone I had been with in high school and how my trauma had pretty much got in the way of actually having a really wonderful relationship. And
almost got in the way of our relationship too.
Yeah.
I wasn't so assertive.
Right. And so that was incredibly important. And we were talking about that also in the midst of Roxann coming to UMASS Amherst to come and holler at me, and then me not having us sharing a special kiss, but me still not being aggressive with her and going back with her, and then her showing up at my house the next day and discovering my boy Steve, who she found on the bus and asked me, "Yo, you know this brother named Keith?"
Yeah, I just figured black
Short
people know black people.
Dude's like 6 feet. Skinny, kind of cute. He was like, "Yeah, I know that dude."
He works at the high school.
He was like, "I know that dude. Yeah, I know. I play ball with him." So, but I was talking about the importance of when I started therapy and things for me to go back, and that I owed it to this person.
You want to identify them or no?
Yeah. I won't say the last name, but yeah, there's not a problem. It was important for me to talk to Renee and to let her know that basically that my trauma got in the way from allowing me to love her in the same way that she loved me, or me telling her that, or figuring out how to get through all these thoughts and all this other stuff that was going on. My parents were getting divorced, like all this stuff. I was confused about what it meant to be a man, to be a young man. I was just I was just confused in so many ways. And so I wanted her to know that. I wanted her to know to also disclose and let her know what was going on with me so she would understand, but also that her being so vulnerable at that time, that I appreciated it. And
so this was a conversation that happened 3 years ago with her. Mm-hmm. And you had reconnected through social media.
Yeah.
And then because you were in therapy, you decided to just randomly call her up and say, basically, apologize.
Yeah, we were on, like Messenger and things like that. And then I was like, I need to talk to you. You know what I mean? And so, we still keep in contact and things like that, because she's a wonderful person. She's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And, now we're friends, you know what I mean? Which is really good. But I owed that to her.
What was her reaction to you wanting to talk to her and you telling her, you basically saying to her, what happened back then was not about you.
Right.
It was about me.
Right.
And I wasn't rejecting you.
Right. I
just didn't know how to manage what you were putting on the table.
Right.
How did she react to you wanting to talk about it?
She was definitely emotional about it. And, I definitely brought her back, and definitely was something that stuck with her. You know what I mean? That stuck with her, because I never really got to talk to her. However, this is a side note story, that I had tried to make an effort to see her, and we were supposed to have dinner together. Supposed to go to her house. And
when was that?
This was when I was, I had left, it was after high school.
So wait a minute. So this experience happened in high school. What grade were you all in?
Like 10th grade, 11th grade, 10th grade.
So, and then you sort of were drawn apart after you didn't, show up for, where she was at. You didn't meet her in the place she was at. And then you were supposed to have dinner with her?
Supposed to have dinner before I met you. Might have been before, I think it might have been before. I was like right before I met you or something like that.
Which would have been after you graduated from high school.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like second year, first year in college, something like that and whatever. Yeah. And I was like, we were like, yo, we're gonna hook up, me and you. And I was like, yes, because you know what? I'm going to tell her the truth. I'm going to tell her and be like, girl. And stuff like that. So we were supposed to hook up, and she probably lived 20 minutes from my house. And I was like, oh, let me get on my bike, and was always fixing bikes and blah, 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 whatever. So I got on the bike, and it's one of those old style racing bikes when you lean over.
I don't think
okay.
I don't think they need to know that.
No, it's important.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it's important, because I had because it was one of those ones you would lean over, and it had the two brakes that on the bottom of the handlebars. And so one of them was broken.
One of the brakes?
One of the brakes was broken, so it was loose. And so I had it in my hand, right? And I was like, I just faded myself up with a fresh part. Like, I was ready to go. I was like, oh my God, I'm finally going to tell Renee the situation. And so I got out of my driveway in less than 2 seconds from my house, right? I was flying down the street. I drop the damn brake that was in my hand. It goes in the front spoke. And I fly over the handlebars and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I fall. And I'm like, oh, all right. I'm like, okay, I think I'm okay.
You fall off your bike.
I fall off the bike over the handlebars.
And hit your head.
No, I didn't hit my head.
Oh.
You would have thought I would hit my. I didn't. I broke my fall. Like, I was like, oh my God, yes. I was like, I fell. I'm going to be okay. I'll still go see Renee. Don't you know that the brake was attached to a cable? And it's like it fell out the sky and hit me right in my head and cut me open.
So wait, you didn't hit your head, but the brake bopped you on the head.
Bopped me on my daggone head. And so nobody was home, right? So pretty much I was
in your house?
In my house. So I had to like wobble back up and I called Renee and I said, Renee, I need you to come take me to the hospital. And so Renee took me to the hospital and I got stitches and they cut part of my fro and I was upset, my box. I was pissed off. And so, right. So we get back in the car and whatever. She talking about what she gonna get for dinner and things like that.
No.
And I'm like, so we still going to your house, right? And of course, Renee looked at me like I was crazy. It was like, no, I'm taking you a little behind. I'm taking you a little skinny behind home. And I was like, what you mean? I'm okay. And she was like,
no, you're not.
She was like, Negro, you in shock. Negro, you were in shock. And I was a shock. I was a complete mess, but I couldn't believe it because I was like, here she was, and she was looking so beautiful that night. Like, oh my God. And so it didn't happen then. And so that was one thing. I ended up telling her that story as well when I was talking to her. And I was like, look, I was trying to talk to you before, but I fell on my head. And it kind of messed everything up. So that's just a side story.
That's a really good story.
That's a side story. Big shout out to Renee. You know I got much love for you. And she was really great, just incredibly supportive as well. I'm like, wow.
Wait. Go back. No,
okay.
Wait. You got to go back to when you were having the conversation with her. How did she respond to you you told her everything and what happened?
Oh, she was emotional. She was like, oh my God, like, why didn't you tell me? I wish you would told me. I would have, I would have tried to help you. Like, I can't believe that you were going through that by yourself. Like, I would have rolled with you through it.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? She's like, I would have rolled with you with that. I would have took care of you. Mm-hmm. Because that's the type of person she is. She's sweet in that way. And so, yeah, she was just really compassionate and caring. But to be honest with the type of person she is, I wouldn't expect anything. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was like, wow, she is still just incredible. And then, it's not like she wanted, and she did ask me some questions and things like that she had. Mm-hmm. But it was a good conversation. We talked for like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. At least 2 hours about it. But she was great. She was really great, really, really understanding, and I'm glad that I did that. Mm-hmm. Really, 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 really glad that I did that.
It must have really helped her a lot and healed something that was just sort of sitting there in her heart. Yeah,
no, it was, because even when she talked about it and things like that, I was like, whoa, like this was, I can only imagine what it's like to completely put yourself out there, definitely at such a young age, completely, because you're feeling and you're seeing exactly what you think you're seeing, right? And then it's like you miss something when it doesn't happen. And
at that time in high school, you had been violated. The 2 experiences had happened, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. And it was just trying to figure out how to kind of deal with that.
And you didn't tell anybody? No one? At that time?
I believe I talked about it a little bit with DF. Big shout out DF. I think I had a little. I had talked about it a little bit.
And that was one of your best friends.
Yeah, that was my road dog. That was my road dog. No. Always being a road dog. So yeah, I hadn't talked about it. I hadn't really talked about it.
No.
That much.
I think one of the things that's interesting to think about is how this trauma that we have experienced, each of us in our own way, how damaging it is to our relationships with people.
Yeah, no, it's a big thing. And I think, you know what, I want to bring us back. And I think that's, that's an important point. We don't bring us back to the story and things like that. But that's incredibly important because our relationships, it affects our relationships with regular people in general. Not just the fact that folks that we're trying to be intimate with, but in a lot of ways, anytime that we open up to be friends with someone, it is intimate in some ways because we have been violated or hurt.
And there's vulnerabilities when you're in a relationship with anybody. And that's one thing that I think people glaze over. Like, you don't have to be intimate with that person in order for you to feel vulnerable or to sort of have all unresolved feelings about feeling rejected or what your relationship is or how you, or even your perspective of your relationship with somebody or friendship.
Right. I think, you know what, though? I think one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is how I walk into spaces. How am I feeling walking into spaces? I can walk into spaces not confident or extra emotional, which sometimes we just feel that way, and how sensitive I am to everything that's around and how the messages are always negative, or in my mind that they're always negative.
That's what we do, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I've been making a concerted effort, as I walk these streets, and I walk into some spaces where there's not that many black males that look like me, or in some situations where there are black males that look like me, to make sure that I'm good.
You just mean there's not a lot of black males. You keep saying that look like me, but don't.
Yes.
I'm not saying y'all look alike, but
black and brown men.
You just identifying that you don't see a lot of black and brown.
Yeah, sometimes in those certain situations, I got to make sure that, you know what I mean? I got to make sure that I'm good. Yeah. Because, and that's one thing that I just been telling myself, and it's been incredibly helpful as of late to I'm okay. You know what I mean? So I'm not looking at all the small little things that happen and whatever.
But there's a context for that. You went to a school where there weren't many black and brown boys.
No, that's not the case necessarily. We had some folks. Those my peoples.
You're talking about high school or prior?
High school, no, prior. We had some peoples. But there's always situations. I mean, living in the city, there's going to be certain times. It's just like everybody. As you continue to move through the world, some people experience it, some people don't. But up here, you definitely experience at certain times when, you're in some situations where there's not many folks that look like you sometimes, But I think just in general, walking in the spaces and trying to make sure that I'm grounding myself in spaces and feeling like making a concerted effort to ground myself. And then, being able to flow through, But let's get back to the story. Let's bring it back to the story. That was really cool. And we'll talk more about, relationships with people and family and stuff like that. But let's get back to me and you. Let's get back to me and you.
Where are we in our story?
Well, we were talking, you just said Steve. You put a rose on my bed. I didn't know it yet.
It was listen, it was Black Brown Cambridge Bachelor. You know, like they have that show on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she put it on my bed. And so I ended up coming home the next day or whatever. And I was like, went into my room and I was like, because she didn't tell me what it was. My father just had a smile on his face when he saw me. He's like, like, hey man, she got some nice boobs. That's how he looked at me and stuff like that. And, I was like,
nothing like a little objectification from your future father-in-law.
I was like, man, like really, just let it be, and I couldn't believe it. I went to my room and there was a rose on my bed. And I was like, man, this girl she is sweet as heck, ain't she? My God, just drove 3,000 miles and now she left a rose on my bed. This is something serious. I was like, this is pretty cool. And so I remember I called her, to say thank you and things like that. And we continued the courting pretty much because we were just talking on the phone. I was in school doing stuff. She was in school. We just kept things going. We just really, really kept it going.
We clicked.
And the thing about it is I knew that she was in a relationship and things like that. And I was like, we're not going to define what's going on here. And she was the thing about it is we kind of made a pact in some ways. And we were like, I was like, look, I'm never going to have you not be who you are always. You're going to be this firecracker from the Bronx and that's who you are. I'm never going to silence you. I'm never going to get in the way of anything that you want to do. You're never going to say a man got in the way of of your goals. My expectation of you is for you to tell me and to be 100% as honest as much as you can. I felt like I couldn't ask any more of her than that, and that she couldn't ask any more than me of that. And that was one thing I felt like was incredibly important to us, was that we could be as honest as we could, right? And I think that was really important to our relationship. We were honestly straight up friends. You know, she loved me. There was no question about that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just had to make sure. You know what I mean? And I was definitely in love with her, but there was still some boundaries with that it was kind of grown up in some ways. You know what I mean? Like, you're still in a relationship, you're still kind of with your dude, but we're kind of together. But you know what? I'm not going to ask too many questions.
That was before I moved up here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's before. Mm-hmm. That's before you moved up here and stuff like that. And that was the thing about it. Like, there was a certain freeness with it.
Well, I mean, yes, I was still in somewhat of an emotional relationship with some sex, but it was destructive. Mm. It was a very destructive relationship at that point.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I mean, the other thing about Roxann, which made her really fun, is that she would just talk a whole bunch of shit. Like, Roxann would just talk a whole bunch of shit. Like, that was the one thing that, you know, that she...
What made you think of that?
Just because what you just said, it just made me think of it like, you acting like you all nice. It's not like she wasn't nice, but she was definitely, she would just talk. I mean, she just talked just so much junk. Like, you know, who you think you are? You ain't nobody. And stuff like that, you know. I'm sorry, the famous line was, your penis ain't gold. That was the famous line. Is that, be like, girl, come here, I want to talk to you. Wow, your penis ain't gold. Like, that was the answer. Like, that was the answer for everything. Hey, Roxann, what? Your penis ain't gold? Like, that was the answer. And I was the go-to. It was the go-to all the time. What
you gonna say? What you gotta say?
What you gotta say? You can't say nothing about that.
You ain't gonna say nothing.
Right. Is it gold? Is it gold?
Is it? I know it's not. I know it's not.
Ain't gold, right? And like, that was, you know, that was one of the things. Like, who you think you are? You ain't nobody. And like, that's...
Yeah, I used to pop off.
And like, she used to pop off like that. Yeah. And like, that, she was kind of playful, but that was just actually really her emotional outburst, right? Yeah. That was Roxann's emotional outburst, how she would back people up. Roxann can make somebody think that she was the toughest, roughest, low down, dirtiest person from the Bronx. And when she spoke and was like, who you talking to? What? Don't make me come. And people would just be like, oh, You know what I'm saying? When you get someone that can back you up with a less than a couple of sentences or use MF, you know, that was her thing. When she would say,
but yo, that's part of living a triggered life too. Yo. That's like, that is, you have to survive. You don't survive, you're gonna get eaten alive. That was part of my survival tactic, man.
People. She was back and forth. She was like, MF? What?
Yeah. Oh, MF? You know what MF is, right, like, y'all? Mofo. I'd be like, wait, I'm sorry.
Yes. So we're gonna stop here. We're gonna stop here. And we'll pick it up here. You've been listening to Living a Triggered Life podcast with Keith Maskell,
Roxann Maskell,
and we'll get into a little bit more about how we met, etc., etc., etc. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening to Living a Triggered Life podcast with Keith
and Roxann, presented by The Triggered Project.
To find out more information about The Triggered Project, go to www.triggered1.com. And remember, you're no longer surviving, you're thriving, and you're learning.